Hello, I am Kisti Felps, and today is August 3rd, 2023, and I will be interviewing Marsha Garrett as part of First Congregational's 150th anniversary celebration. So we'll start first with, what are your first memories of First Congregational Church, Marsha?
I had little children, and Amy Petit, who grew up in this church, was their babysitter. She was in middle school, and she told me about the forum. And she said, we have this thing at our church called the forum, and you might be interested in it, because she knew me and thought that was the kind of thing I would like. So, and Amy's parents went to this church. She grew up in this church. I think her mom and dad were both Mary and Joseph at one time.
Aww.
Anyway, so I started going to the forum, and I loved the forum, and I went to the forum for, a while. That's all I did, is just go to the forum. And even though I was born and raised Methodist, so I had been out of church for a while. And then Jerry Jordan, who was the minister when I was going there, when I was attending the forum, came up to me one Sunday and said, would you be interested in joining the church? And I said, no, I don't know, and took the class with him and joined the church, and that's how my affiliation with the church started. And it turned out to be an absolutely fantastic place to raise my children.
Yeah. And you've spoken about this a little already, but when and why did you become a member of the church? And who was the minister at the time?
Jerry Jordan. Yes. And I joined because I really liked the forum, and I thought, this is a really open church that's open to questioning and other ideas outside of Christianity, and it seemed like the kind of place that I would be comfortable in. So, does that?
It does. Remind me when you joined.
Well,
Marsha, do you remember the year?
It was almost, my youngest was 2, maybe when I first started coming.
Okay.
So, and she's 42, so almost 40 years ago. If it wasn't 40, it was almost 40.
Close to that.
Whatever Ceil Malek said.
Okay.
Because Ceil and I were in the same class when we joined the church. We joined together.
Yeah.
We met. That's how we met each other.
Yeah. Very neat. Can you share a memory from your time spent with any committee, group, or team?
Oh, gosh. Well, I served on the music committee more than once. Before it was called Music and Arts, it was the music committee. And we interviewed organists a time or two and choir directors. And I was on something called Our Church's Wider Mission, OCWM, which is now called MG&O. And it was about, spending our money beyond the walls of the church. And I was on the education committee. And I was on many planning committees for women's retreats.
Yeah, very neat. Who do you remember as friends in the church over the years?
How much time do you have? There's a group of us who all had small children together at the same time, who still get together once a month. We consider ourselves part of the village that helped raise our children, and we still meet once a month. And that is Ceil Malek and Ila Almond, Kathy Lindeman, Susan Holman, Linda Dodson, who is in Maui. So we do it by Zoom, so Linda can be part of it. Me, and I'm leaving somebody out. Oh, gosh. Who would that be? That group started, I actually started that group because I went to yet another funeral a few years ago, and people stand around at funerals and say, I haven't seen you for such a long time, we should get together. And it occurred to me that if you're not intentional about something like that, years can go by and you don't do it. And so I decided to gather all these women, and there's one that I have, Ila, Ceil, Linda. I should have written it down because, I'm 75 and I just don't remember the way I used to. So anyway,
what a wonderful group.
Yeah, and we were there for each other when our kids were tiny, and when they all sang in the children's the musical presentations, when they put on the Moses one and they put on the Jonah one. My older daughter was Moses and my younger daughter was Jonah because they couldn't find any boys that wanted to sing. And then they did Godspell later, and so, and all those moms were part of
a lot of
I'm
connections.
just going to be really embarrassed at the person I forgot. It might pop into my head.
We'll edit it in so that no one knows you forgot.
Good.
So what do you value most about this church and community, Marsha?
Gosh, there's so many things. I value I really, where I find God is in nature and in relationships. So the relationships that have been part of my life at this church over 40 years mean so much to me. Many of those people are gone now. I remember where they sat, in what pew they sat in. And I've seen children baptized here who are now adults, and some of them have their own children. And there's something about that longevity of being in a place where you see the flow of life from birth to death over a long period of time and know people intimately that just means a lot to me. I also love that when we baptize, we tell children that we do not presume to tell them what to believe, but we help them find their own spiritual way, and we'll walk with them. I do love how it's open and affirming. It's a Micah 6 church. It has an open communion table, which symbolizes the fact that it's an open place.
Right.
So,
I love that. Share with us one of your favorite memories from your time as a member here.
Oh gosh, I have so many. The first time each of my daughters got to be an angel, because they watched from the time they were little and could not wait to be an angel. And I got to iron the angel costumes. I don't know if you've done that, but that's really fun. The first time they got to be candle lighters, way back in the day, children lit the candelabra on the chancel. And it was so exciting for my two girls when they got to ask to go up and light the candles. The women's retreats were absolutely so much. I've never laughed so hard and cried so much as at those women's retreats. Many of the people that I remember from those retreats are no longer with us. But that really solidified, I remember when the women's choir got up and sang Let the River Run from 9 to 5. And I bet there were 40 of us who sang, and that was a really wonderful experience. I remember agonizing over Open and Affirming and all the meetings we went through for that, and how difficult it was, and how hard people tried to understand each other and their different points of view, and how hard Jim White pushed us to do the right thing, and some people didn't agree that was the right thing. We lost members over that, and it was a painful time. But we came back from that, and it's helpful to have that history, because as we've gone through other painful times since then, you just know that, the core people who are still going to be here are going to pull us through, and it's going to be okay.
Sure.
Yeah. There's so many. I mean, I can't begin. I got to be Mary one year. That was just quite the deal. But that was something I never anticipated.
What an honor.
Yeah. Well, the mystery is the mystery. It's one of those things that as the world changes all around, the mystery is still there. And they always say it's always still the same. But they've tweaked it a little bit. They've made some nice changes, I think. But anyway, that was kind of and it was with Pete Hokinson. He was Joseph. So that was fun.
That is
and it was an honor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What advice do you have to give to the congregation as we go forward over the next 150 years?
That it is not a smooth ride down a flat highway out on the Kansas plains. It's a roller coaster. And things happen, things come up, and there will be controversies and there will be difficulties, but with that open and affirming viewpoint that we have here and acceptance of different points of view and everything, and the love that goes along with that you can get over things that come along, the bumps in the road.
Right.
Yeah. And also that it goes so fast. I might cry when I talk about this, but when I started, I had a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old. I was in my mid-30s. Now I'm in my mid-70s. And I remember those people in their mid-70s. And I didn't know them at that time. I know all of them now because that's where I am. But I guess I would say to appreciate those people who have been around and who have memories and have wisdom. I'm not saying I do, but because I don't feel like I'm. But Samantha, who was 3 at the time, and I sat in the service next to this lovely lady named Pearl Steele. And Pearl was just the quietest, sweetest lady, and Samantha was all over the place. And I was always so worried that she would, and Pearl just was so sweet with her. It was really sad when Pearl was gone. I remember her really well. And other people like Gladys and Helen, who were sisters who lived together, and who were both widows, and they lived together. And so I guess a piece of advice would be, it goes fast, pay attention, and each generation that you're in the church has something to offer and something that the other generations can learn from. And I wish there were ways that we could connect better among the generations in this church. I love teenagers because I tutored teenagers for a long, long time, and I would love to know the teenagers in this church better. But there just aren't those opportunities. They're busy in youth group and school and everything, and our lives just aren't in the same place. Yeah. But if the church would, I think, take the opportunity to find ways for intergenerational, meaningful connections, I think it would be a really good thing. Yeah.
It sounds like good wisdom. I like that. Any other specific memories about First Congregational you would like to share before we finish?
Gosh, I just love this church so much. There's many, many, many things about it that I guess I'd like to share about the ministers that I've known. Yeah. Jerry Jordan was the minister when we joined, and we had not been part of a church before that, and so my girls had not been baptized. And when Jerry and Gail moved to Wisconsin, I think my girls were like 4 and 6, I want to say. So 4 and 8, or maybe, something like that. And Jerry and Gail were moving away, and we all loved him so much. My girls loved his brown bag sermons, which were just the best. And they asked, could we be baptized by Jerry before he moves away? So Jerry, in his last, I think it was his last Sunday here, baptized my 2 girls. And I think there were a couple other children that he ended up baptizing too. That is a really good memory.
I have to tell you a sweet story that piggybacks on that.
Yeah.
When my son Silas was in kids' community worship one Sunday, they had done their lesson, and Jordan was the assistant, and he had come down and helped. And at lunch, we were talking about what he had learned. And I said, "What did you learn today?" And he said, "I learned that Jerry Jordan baptized Jesus." So that's, your girls are in good company.
Oh, that's hilarious. And I would say about Jerry that Jerry was a uniter. I was so impressed when I joined this church at how there were quite a few fairly conservative people that went to church here, and more liberal people, and everybody seemed to get along. And it was, of course, it was a different time too. It was, not the 2020s, but and then Jim was kind of very different, and a crusader, and he really stepped up when it came to the LGBTQ question when Colorado tried to pass LGBTQ discriminatory laws, and I've always appreciated him for that. And then when Ben came, and I was so glad that Ben became the lead minister once Jim was gone, because he had been the youth minister, and I thought he was really good, and he lent a youthful perspective. He was a little bit younger, and he had just been to seminary and majored in sermons, and so he was such a good preacher with no notes and in the middle of the chancel. And now we have Leanne, and I just really think Leanne is wonderful. And she knew my older daughter at CU. When Rachel was going to CU 25 years ago. Leanne was one of the sponsors for UMHE, which stands for United Ministries in Higher Education. The mainline churches in Boulder started this group to kind of be a counterbalance to a lot of the really conservative Christian groups that were evangelizing on campus. And they had a house right off of campus that the kids hung out at and watched Friends every week, I guess, and got pizza and had lots of parties. And every spring break they went on a mission trip somewhere. And Leanne was one of the sponsors of that group.
Oh, wow.
So when Rachel, my daughter, found out that Leanne was coming to be our minister, she was just thrilled. She said, "Oh, Mom, she's such a wonderful person and such a good guitar player and singer and everything." So she was really thrilled. So I think we've been fortunate to have some really wonderful leadership, and also lay leadership. A lot of people. I'm not organized enough to be a good, strong leader, but we've had some really wonderful people in leadership positions in this church, I think, and the fellowship and the connections. I just feel this like web when I sit in the sanctuary of all these people that I've known and loved and cared about, and it means a lot to me. And I think this church has that same role. That same role is important for us to do in the community too, because the community needs the perspective that this church gives. I really feel strongly about that. So
Yeah. And maybe how have you seen First Congregational impact Colorado Springs over the years?
Well, we have our church's wider mission, and people can come and seek grants for their nonprofits here in town. And I think we've given a lot of money over the years. We've also hosted IHN and the homeless families that stay here. I just thought of, we have so many members who are out there fed by this church and then go out and do their work in the community, and there's something to be said about that too. This is a place where a lot of people who do good things in the community attend, and I think get a lot of their strength and support from this place. Yeah,
I like that. Is there anything else that you've kind of remembered as we've talked about, any other memories or friends in the church that you'd like to share, Marsha?
Well, I remember the time at the Easter, that when my kids were little, and there was an Easter party, I think on the Saturday before Easter, or maybe this Saturday before Palm Sunday or something, where the kids were supposed to bring hard-boiled eggs, a carton of hard-boiled eggs, and they would all dye eggs and stuff. And when my girls got back in the car, they said, "Mom, you sent raw eggs." And I said, "No, I didn't. I know I didn't. I boiled the eggs." And when I got home and looked in my refrigerator, there were the boiled eggs, and I had sent the raw eggs. And there's like countless little things like that that have happened over the years that we've just laughed about, and like these women that all get to. Sarah Weatherman, did I mention Sarah as one of the people in this? Sarah was our Christian Ed director for many years, and she's in my little village of moms that still get together now. We share about our grandchildren and are there for each other through our the challenges of getting older. Which once upon a time it was the challenges of having a 2-year-old or something, and now it's the challenges of getting older, and all of those things. Is nice to have that kind of support.
I love how you've shared kind of each kind of stage of life, what the church has meant to you during those.
It's so much more than coming to church on Sunday. And lately, because of my mom's illness and death, I haven't attended as much because there's been a lot going. But church is so much more than just coming to church on Sunday. Church is a community and a family, and it's Colorado Springs is a big place. It's nice to have a community, a small community that you're part of in the larger community. I don't know. I'm going to go home and think of all kinds of things I should have said, but I just I think this is a place that I'm so glad I found, and I've had the privilege to be part of, and to get to know so many just wonderful people. It's a great place.
I love that. I think we have some good music going on upstairs.
Well, I guess I could have talked about music. There's all kinds of music,
you did mention that
was Jazz Sunday. I remember when we started Folk Sunday, and of course Folk Sunday is my generation, and I was like, oh yes, all these songs that I know, Folk Sunday and Jazz Sunday and things like, it's not vanilla, this place. This place is not vanilla. It's, like a banana split Sunday with all different kinds of ice cream and sauce and everything. And that's another thing I love about it.
I love that. Marsha, a lot of the events that you've talked about, we still celebrate or experience. Is there anything that we don't do anymore? Maybe some traditions
Well,
that have gone by the wayside.
The Plymouth Circle is gone. Plymouth Circle used to be a real going concern. Connie Robb, I think, tried to keep it. And you know, I think circles, this little group of mine that stays together is sort of like our own little circle. You know, women's, you know, because I remember life in the 50s, which is like ancient history. And my mom went to Circle, and she also went to the Ladies Club, which was the, you know, secular women's gathering. And I think there were more things like that back in the day because a lot of women didn't work outside the home and didn't get outside the home a lot. And so these were really meaningful ways for them to gather. But women today are just, you know, working outside the home and working later into life sometimes. And so, you know, Plymouth Circle is something I remember all the ladies that went to Plymouth Circle and some of the things they did. And
what was Plymouth Circle?
It was a ladies' church circle. I mean, the church I grew up in had a ladies' circle, and they got together once a month. Usually, had finger foods and tea or something, you know, and like lots of times a speaker or a cause that they worked on, like packing little packages to send to the homeless kids that go to school or whatever, you know. And, you know, Plymouth Circle is no more, I don't think. But we have so many other things that have kind of taken its place. That's one thing I can think of that, well, the children, when my girls were here, there were tons of kids. And so there were the children's productions that were put on probably twice a year. And Sarah Weatherman and Susan Holman, you know, were the ones that did that, and the kids loved it. And the congregation loved it. They were presented in the service, the worship service. Anyway.